Hello everyone, welcome to NR Dialogue. This is a special program by TechnoBiz focusing on the NR, natural rubber and industry and its developments in various regions. Today we are on episode number 5 and focusing on the natural rubber industry in the Philippines. And we have 3 experienced eminent rubber industry professionals from Philippines. We'll be discussing on various issues about the natural rubber industry in Philippines. As I mentioned to you, this program is managed by TechnoBiz in cooperation with Mr. Jom Jacob, is a rubber industry analyst. Before we start the program, let me brief you about TechnoBiz so that you have an idea about what is TechnoBiz, what kind of services we are offering for the rubber industry. Maybe some of the services may be beneficial to you. First of all, the official website is technobiz.org, but you need to also follow TechnoBiz in various platforms, social media platforms as well. It is recognized as International Resource Center for Tech Industries and Technologies. It's established in 2005. We are based in Thailand. And main pillar for TechnoBiz is professional education. We believe in education, and with education around the services, the business and the technical services we offer for the industries. When it comes to the services, we are pretty much global, and we offer trade, exhibitions, training programs, webinars, business network, publications, research, knowledge test, skill development, marketing and branding. It's all about being a resource center, offering you knowledge at the same time of how to develop your business through the various platforms that we have. And our business focus is not just only in the rubber industry, but we also offer on plastics, polyurethane, adhesives, chemical and process technologies, energy environment, water and membrane technologies, filtration and separation, and also the process industries. Again, we provide a global service. And let me give you a brief overview about what kind of services we offer for the rubber, latex, and tire industry. When I talk about rubber, I mean we also cover latex also, and then also the tire industries as well. First of all, we have trade exhibitions, which we organize in Thailand. We have an exhibition called GRTE. It's a Global Rubber, Latex, and Tire Expo, which happens every 2 years. Once in every 2 years, due to the COVID, our next schedule is in March. Okay? And we also have a Middle East show, Arab Rubber Expo, which we organize in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, near to the Dubai. So we have 2 trade shows we organize, and we have online training programs. We develop, as you said, we have training programs, but we used to organize physical program, but now we have also developed online training programs also. We use the platform Know-How Webinar platform, which is basically a platform for the professional education. And we have various experts, more than 40 experts are contributing various topics for the rubber industries. Okay? We're well experienced and knowledgeable. And we have 3 types of programs, short training programs, master classes, and also a diploma program also. Okay? I'll show you a separate presentation on it. Okay? So, as I said, it's 360 degrees executive diploma program, rubber industry technology and management. You can actually download the file of this one in a handout folder here. Okay. Other than that, we also offer assistance. Companies are looking for developing their manpower on a regular basis. We kind of offer annual programs for them based on what their requirement. We also have a brainstorming sessions with our experts, best practices. So we offer a lot of knowledge and customized services for the industries that are interested. Okay. We have we publish books. We also publisher. We have more than 50 reference books which is published by TechnoBiz. If you're interested, you can check at the store.technobiz.org. But we don't publish the books already available. We look at what industry are looking for, what books are not available, what top subjects are not available. So we focus on that subject. So we have like rubber molding, cost reduction, tire technology. So please check our website store.technobiz.org. We have a bi-monthly magazine, Rubber and Tire Digest, which is jointly produced by TechnoBiz and Rubber World in the US. It's free to subscribe. I encourage all of you who are listening to participate in this session, go to the website rubbertiredigest.com. You can subscribe to the this magazine. Currently, we have 6,000 plus global readers following this. It's a technical magazine suitable for technical people. And as we know, we have a weekly program, online program, news hour, rubber industry news hour. We cover a lot of things: technical, non-technical, business, market outlooks, and panel discussions. A lot, So you follow this program every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Thailand time. So it's really useful. We cover one or two topics on each episode. And part of this one is NR Dialogue, which with Mr. Jom Jaka, we started this program, which is monthly. And basically, we invite specialists from the region and talk about what's happening in that country related to natural rubber industry. So this is a monthly program, usually in the last week of the month. Okay, so from the next episode onward, it will be part of the rubber industry news hour on the last week of the month. We have initiated a new program. It is called Rubber Industry Connect. Basically, it is to support SMEs. We wanted to introduce the rubber product manufacturers and who particularly from SME people. We make a video on them and promote through the TechnoBiz social media platforms. Currently, we are offering the first 100 companies who are participating. It's a free service. But criteria is that they must be from SME and also they must be from the rubber product manufacturer or natural rubber manufacturers. They come from any part of the world. There is no need one particular country. Any company is an SME and who needs assistance in brand their company or promote their company on the global scale. We have platforms, and so you can utilize our platforms. Okay? We also offer customized marketing, customized promotion, corporate branding, social media marketing. Okay? And we have a professional network. What is a social media? We have I manage the Rubber Technologies Global Network. A lot of promotion, a lot of activities we promote through this group. Okay, currently we have 5,000 members. We also have a LinkedIn page, which is a Rubber Industry Network. We have also around 4,000 plus members globally. And we have a WhatsApp group. Currently I have 3,000 members. They're also from the different parts of the world. And so we have these platforms are there. Okay. Which we can utilize to promote various activities for the benefit of the industry. And okay, we have this video platform. We have TechnoBiz channel. This session today you'll be watching. You can also watch on YouTube tomorrow on the TechnoBiz channel. Okay. So if you need more information on TechnoBiz, you can always check the contact me or website. I think most of you have my contact information. I'm happy to assist you as appropriate if you need any assistance. I wanted to show some additional information on the training programs. It's a short video. It's a lot of slides are there, but a very short time. So if you're interested to get to know more details about our training programs, you can download the PDF file that I have included in the presentation. Okay. Let me show you the video on our training programs. that's about our training programs, online training programs. I can say that in a very exhaustive list because we are the largest and specialized rubber industry training provider in the world, online training program. We have developed more than 250 topics and 20 master classes, and also we're having online diploma programs also. Anybody interested, you can always check our website at knowhow-webinars.com. Okay, let's get to the today's session. The NR dialogue focusing on the Philippines natural rubber industry. So let me invite our host for this program today, Mr. Jerome Jacob. He is recognized as an independent analyst in the natural rubber industry globally. He has more than 30 years experience in analyzing rubber market, forecasting industry trends, and formulating long-term policies and development plans for the natural rubber sector. He served the Association of Natural Rubber Producing Countries, shortly called ANRPC, based in Kuala Lumpur, as its senior economist for 11 years. Before that, he was with the Rubber Board of India by holding various positions for 23 years. So let's welcome Mr. Jerome Jacob, the well-known rubber industry analyst. Jerome, please.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to the NR Dialogue episode number 5. For this episode, we are spotlighting the NR industry in the Philippines, a dynamic natural rubber industry in terms of institutional support and also importance in the global panorama. So let us have a quick glance about the profile of the natural rubber industry in the country, in the Philippines, through a very short video presentation. Over to the video. a very interesting video. In fact, the video makes us curious to know more about the natural rubber industry in the country. In fact, we got a broad picture of the NR industry in the Philippines, total area, geographical distribution, and also the value chain, and also various involvement of the various organizations, everything covered broadly. Now we are going into the details. So today we have three eminent leaders of the rubber industry in the Philippines to share their insights with us. In fact, the three leaders are capable of providing more detailed information through their experience over years under various capacities in the development of the Philippine rubber industry. So we have three important leaders. Let me invite the three leaders one by one. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Madam Siti Amina M. J. In fact, actually, Madam Siti needs no introduction at all. So her name is so popular among the rubber industry fraternity world over. Dr. Siti has given dynamic leadership to the natural rubber industry as well as rubber industry as a whole over years by holding various positions in the country's rubber industry. For example, as the regional director of the Department of Trade and Industry for several years, and also the national coordinator for rubber industry cluster for several years. And currently, Madam Siti is chairing the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group. So we will know more about the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group and everything, more about the activities. In fact, actually, Dr. Siti is also a recipient of several awards and recognitions for her contributions for the overall development of the industry, and also author of a few books, and also known for in the international panorama by taking part in the various international events and also representing the country, as well as chairing on behalf of the country in various international platforms. With immense pleasure, let me invite and welcome Dr. Madam Siti Amina Jain to join today's discussion. Welcome, Madam Siti.
Hi, John. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Hi, Siti. So now the second important eminent person who is going to share information about the natural rubber industry in Philippines is Mr. Jack Sandick. Mr. Jack Sandick is very popular name, a very dynamic person in the Philippine rubber industry, not only within the country, even outside the country. Currently, Mr. Jack Sandick is the chairman of the Platinum Rubber Company, which is a plantation company, and also chairman of the Philippines Council for Agriculture and Fisheries, representing the National Banner Program Committee on Rubber. Above all, I personally know Mr. Jack Sandick as a lead farmer, and also innovative rubber farmer. So, Mr. Jack Sandick, with immense pleasure, let me welcome you to join today's discussion. Mr. Jack.
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Jacob, for that very warm introduction.
And now we have one important person who is representing the Philippines rubber processing and manufacturing sector, none other than Mr. Gabriel Cornelio Igot. Mr. Gabriel is the president of the Philippines Rubber Industries Association, a body which is representing the manufacturing as well as processing sector in the country. So, with immense pleasure, let me invite and welcome Mr. Gabriel to join the discussion. Mr. Gabriel, welcome. I think you are not in. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So now we have three important industry leaders here to share their insights as well as views on the natural rubber industry in the Philippines. So through this discussion, we are aiming to discuss the current status of the NR industry in the Philippines, challenges ahead, and as well as opportunities ahead, and also long-term vision of the natural rubber industry in Philippines. So at the end of this discussion, we will be able to get a clear picture about the future of the NR industry in the country, as well as the challenges ahead, as well as opportunities we have. So let me start this discussion by asking a question to Dr. Siti Amina. Of course, while answering, Mr. Gabriel as well as Mr. Jack Santic will join. So Dr. Siti, you are currently leading the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group after spending long years of leadership role in the Philippines for the development of the Philippines rubber industry. So we came to know that there are several organizations actively involved in the Philippines rubber industry. Could you please briefly introduce the various organizations both in the governmental as well as non-governmental sector, which are involved in the developments as well as involved in the regulatory activities of the rubber industry? So maybe if you want to show some video or anything about the organization, you are most welcome. So just share some information about the various organizations and their role.
Okay, thank you so much, Jom. Yes, you're right that we have we have a number of organizations with initiatives to develop the industry. But you know, in 2012, we created the Philippine Rubber Technical Working Group. This is an institution that oversees and coordinates all the programs of activities of agencies that are aligned to the development of the rubber industry, particularly in the natural rubber industry. We have the involvement of strong involvement of the private sector associations like the Philippine Rubber Industry Association, the Philippine Rubber Farmers Associations, and then we have the academe, state universities and colleges. We have the government-owned and controlled financing institution also joining us in other research organization. And for the government agencies, we have 7 active government agencies who are members of the Philippine Rubber Technical Working Group. We have, of course, the Department of Agriculture. We have the Department of Science and Technology. We have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Department of Agrarian Reform. We have the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, and other agencies like the Department of Labor is also part of the Field Rubber Technical Working Group. So what we did in 2012 is create the Field Rubber out of necessity, because there was no single organization coordinating the programs and activities for the development of the rubber industry. So programs and initiatives are actually spread over at least 5 government agencies and other research institutions, and also the initiatives undertaken by private organizations. So actually, by June 22, 2022, the Field Rubber will already be 10 years old. So, and unfortunately, we don't have a rubber board. Of course, you know that. So we need this group for us to be able to unify one direction, one development strategy, one goal, one objectives to develop the Philippine natural rubber industry.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Siti, for the information sharing. In fact, actually, I was fortunate to attend one of the events of the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group. In fact, what impressed me was that, in fact, the Philippines has no Philippines rubber board, but the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group is delivering more than what a rubber board could do. That means it is bringing together various industry organizations, government departments, as well as bringing together the government as well as private sector. That means what should be the new policies, what the government should look into, that is being taken into account, and also the feedbacks are gathered from the private sector. So these are some of the important things I noticed. It's very good. In fact, maybe Mr. Egot and also Mr. Jack may share some information about the organizations you are representing. And also, in case you have other organization, let's please share some information about the various other important organizations.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Gabriel Igot. So I represent the PRIA. So PRIA is the Philippine Rubber Industries Association. Basically, this is an association that was formed between two previous association, the Philippine Rubber Manufacturers Association and the Rubber Industries Association of the Philippines in June 1979. So I've been a president for 5 years. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it. Um, my term has been extended because of COVID, so I'm only supposed to have a 4-year term. But due to the circumstances now, I'm looking at having a 6-year term as a president of PRIA. So um, a few years back, PRIA had uh, a member count of over 100, but due to the and the economic environment in the Philippines and the fact that a lot of the manufacturers moved out of the Philippines to China and to Vietnam, our numbers have decreased. Although we've seen that uh, recently there have been a few startups in rubber. We had a new rubber motorcycle tire manufacturer that recently set up, I think, in the past 5 years. That's based in Cavite. So we have in our association we have 6 tire manufacturers, suppliers, and retreaders, but they out of the 6, only 4 produce uh, motorcycle tires and bicycle tires. Majority of our members are in automotive. They produce belts, hoses, engine mounts, weather guards, different tier 2 or tier 3 products for the automotive industry. And then we also do have a lot of natural rubber processors and traders. And currently we have one latex-based manufacturing. I think they do balloons, latex balloons, and then a lot of other members who are support or suppliers of the main industry in natural rubber in the Philippines, which is either motorcycle tire or the automotive industry.
Okay, that's very informative, Mr. Gabriel. In fact, it's very you have given a profile of the rubber goods manufacturing as well as processing industry in the country. So very good information, and it's good to know that Philippines has such a good manufacturing base within the country. Mr. Jack, would you like to share information about the organization you are representing?
Yes, good afternoon to each and everyone. My name is Jack Sandike. A few years ago, we only have under the Department of Agriculture the venue for private sector and other stakeholders come and meet there on a quarterly basis under the Philippine Council for Agriculture and Fisheries per commodity basis. And about 2 years ago, there was a reorganization. And today, under this same council, the Philippine Council for Agriculture and Fisheries, we have now what we call the National Banner Program Committees, or NBPC, on high value crops. Not only engaged in rubber, but we have more commodities like coffee and cacao. We have coconut. We have the fisheries. We have the rice program, and one of the national banner program that we have is on high value crop is rubber, which modestly aside I chair at the moment. No? This is my second term. I believe that there'll be 2 more years for me to stay there. And the objective of this National Banner Program Committee is to mainstream the private sector participation and involvement in the priority trusts and directions of the Department of Agriculture to ensure multi-stakeholder consultation and dialogue. So this is actually a venue wherein all stakeholders, when it comes focus on production, when it comes to issues and concerns in the private sectors, on the farmers, this is the ultimate place where it should be discussed as far as the Department of Agriculture is concerned. And the National Banner Program, as chaired by me, should be a private sector led. We have also other attached agencies like the Bureau of Plant Industry, Soils and Management, Pests and Diseases, different organizations, and time and time again, we try to invite resource speakers coming from the academy, from the university. So in short, this is the place where stakeholders for the industry of rubber industry will converge and discuss issues and concerns that will somehow help the industry, most especially when it comes to production issues. Thank you, Dr. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Alfonso Jack. In fact, your description about the National Banner Program Committee on High Value Crops is very interesting. So what is striking is that this is a committee of the government, but it is led by the private sector. So this is a beauty of the management of the Philippine rubber industry. So private sector is given very active role in policy formulation bodies and also various development organizations related to rubber. This is something very important. And in fact, actually, other countries are having, some of the other countries are having a rubber board, but Philippines, even without rubber board, Philippines is doing an excellent job without having a rubber board, but the objective is met through a better way. Thank you very much. And now we have some, and any other organizations like, so we have also Philippines Rubber Industry, Philippines Rubber Research Institute is there. About other organizations, Dr. City or Mr. Jack or Mr. Gabriel, would you like to share about information about the other organizations? We have, I know there's a PRI, Philippines Rubber Research Institute is there.
We do have the PRRI, which is the Philippine Rubber Research Institute. It was a bill that was passed, I think, in 2010, but enacted in 2013, and it was funded in 2015. So I was one of the first directors of PRI representing the farmers and growers. I had a 3-year term. So the PRI is a bill that was passed by Congresswoman Ann Hofer, and it's supposed to encompass the whole industry. They're supposed to do research to help the rubber farmer, and so it's supposed to empower. It's supposed to be for empowerment, improvement of production, and rural development. So this was a Republic Act 10089, and the mission and vision of PRI is to be a globally competitive, technologically based, economically and environmentally sustainable Philippine rubber industry, and its mission is to expand and increase efficiency of rubber production and consumption in the country.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. And is there any organization of rubber traders in the country? Which are, for example, is there any other organizations or stakeholder association which are having a major role in the country? For example, I'm asking about most of the countries are having something called a rubber traders association. Is there one association like that in Philippines?
Actually we don't have a specific rubber traders association in the Philippines, but I think most traders and even processors are also part of the Philippine Rubber Industries Association. It's
Okay. Yeah.
by
Okay.
Ms.
Okay.
Rigot as the president.
Okay. That means that their voices are heard and interests are well represented. Okay. So now we had some information about the various organizations in the country. And now let us go further details. So in fact, Philippines is known as an island country. And if I am correct, there are more than 80 provinces in the country, and more than 100 languages are spoken. So through the video presented in the beginning, we had a quick glance about the geographical distribution of rubber area in the country. So maybe for the information of the audience, could you please once again explain which are the regions and provinces where rubber is traditionally cultivated? Or maybe we can go into the history. When was rubber first cultivated, commercially cultivated in the country? And there will be some lead farmers or organizations which had facilitated the commercial introduction of rubber cultivation into the country. So could you please explain or share some information about the commercial beginning of rubber cultivation in the country, as well as the geographical spread of the rubber cultivation in the country? Thank you.
Yes, I believe Dr. Jacob, we should shed some light there now regarding the Philippine rubber history. Unlike other countries, most of the countries neighboring rubber producing countries started in the 18th century. And for us in the Philippines, it was started in early 1904 by no less than the Dr. James W. Strong. He was a U.S. dentist who went to Zamboanga, and when he went to the nearby Basilan, he bought a few thousand acres and looked at this as an opportunity to do business. He started experimenting together with a priest, for that matter, Father Zamora, and he formed the first Basilan rubber plantation in partnership with the Mensi plantation. Um, Surprisingly, today, some of the descendants of this Dr. James W. Strong are still around and they're still producing rubber. In fact, I know one of a good friend of mine, I think the great grandson of Dr. Strong is Sam Strong, who lives in Davao, but they have their rubber farm, which is located in the southwestern part of the Mindanao, in Maitom, Sarangani province. And they still have, until now, they are still planting rubber. Um, so then by 1914, Dr. Strong cleared vast tracts of land, making that plantation the American Rubber Company, which was later bought by the American multinational company, the BF Goodrich. It was later managed by Sime Darby. So there were on the 30s and the 50s and even in the 60s, we have several companies around Mindanao. We have the Goodyear Plantation, which was located in Cabasalan, Zamboanga, Sibugay now. We have Firestone Plantation and their factory, which was located in my hometown in Makilala, North Cotabato. We have the Rio Grande State Plantation, which was located in Cabacan. And all these multinational companies were there, no, were around. And not until 1986 when our comprehensive agrarian reform program was initiated, and that was the time that these multinational companies were out of the country, and most most of these, shall we say, multinational companies were redistributed to smallholders, and some of which are formed now as um, cooperatives, farmers cooperatives, rubber farmers cooperative like Menzies, Warbemco. We have the Goodyear company in Cabasala, which is called now Dagarbemco, and some of which are still existing and continue to produce rubber. Moreover, we have Goodyear Tire Manufacturing Company, which is one of the leaders. One of the leaders in bringing in clones, no? Clones that were coming from Sumatra, Indonesia. So the yield, as far as I remember, when it comes to plantation production during the time of Firestone, they were doing like 1,200, 1,000 to 1,200 kilos dry per hectare per year during the time. And since then, during the late 60s and 70s, the government, through the initiative of the Development Bank of the Philippines, had a very good program in promoting rubber farming, giving financial assistance to farmers who wants to engage in rubber farming. Um, just so happen, I'm quite familiar with that because my late dad, who was all for rubber, he was then the agency manager of one of the smallest bank in of DBP located in Kidapawan, and we were able to entice friends and relatives to go into farming, rubber farming. So this the area planted, as far as area being planted by rubber, um, data shows that in 2020 we have accumulated some 230,000 hectares. Um, when you say rubber plant farming, it's located about 99% is located. If you look at the map, it's located on the southern part, which is Mindanao. So we have Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Mindanao is where mostly of the farms are located. There are 6 regions that is dedicated to rubber, but 40% of which the champion for production is located in Zamboanga Peninsula, where 40% of the production is coming is being planted, and 17% is in our place, which is Soxargen. But there are also areas being planted, challenging areas, shall we say, non-traditional areas like Visayas and Luzon. These are areas that are visited yearly by at least a dozen of typhoon. So there were there were attempts like in the area of Bagao, Alcala in northern Luzon. They planted hundreds of hectares. On the first few years, there was no wind damage, but when but a couple of years ago, there was like 400, 500 hectares that was 3, 4 year old trees were toppled down by a strong typhoon. And for production, we have a different map here. We produce 211,000 metric tons, and not 99% of the natural rubber volume is coming from Mindanao. We have Zamboanga, Soxargen to continue. No? Soxargen, we have Zamboanga, the Peninsula, Soxargen, and BARM. No? BARM stands for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. We continue to be the top 3 producers. And but then again, the leader of this still Zamboanga Peninsula, uh, with with only 5% coming from other regions. So that will be all for the history and for the area planted and the volume of the Philippine natural rubber. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jack. Very informative and detailed description about the historical evolution, as well as the geographical spread of the area, as well as the In fact, the importance of the Mindanao region, 99% of the production coming from the Mindanao region highlights the importance of that particular region. So that means we now have some information about the geographical distribution as well as historical evolution. Thank you very much for that information sharing. So yes, just now we have mentioned that we have seen that Philippines established its rubber research institute a few years ago. So that means until Philippines Rubber Research Institute was established, how did the country manage its crown improvement programs, crop protection, and various other R and research and development needs? So could you please share how this was managed before the establishment of the PRRI? You are muted, Mr. Jack, you are muted.
Sorry.
Hear you.
Obviously, with the absence of that was a very question raised. Obviously, with the absence of the Philippine Rubber Research Institute during that time, we will relying more on the presence of the multinational companies. Like for example, in our place, we rely on the laboratories of Firestone. It's basically the same on other parts of the country. I had a chance to visit Basilan during the time in Menzi, and so with Goodyear. Before PRI was around, there were also initiatives coming from rubber processors to have their own laboratories. And luckily, we also have very active participation. In the absence of PRRI, we have also under the Department of Agriculture, we have the Bureau of Agricultural Research. We have also from the Department of Science and Technology, we have also the PICARD, who was also in research. They were around, and I'll give more emphasis on the private sector led. We together with other farmers, we attended a lot of seminars, especially IRDB seminars and conferences. We attend and try to imitate on and get updates on what's going on around the other rubber Asian rubber producing countries. We get to just like in my case, I rub elbows with the scientists of IRDB just to get important information that might help our industry here in the Philippines. Thank you.
Just to add on to what Mr. Sandika said, I grew up I was actually born in Goodyear in Cabasalan, so I grew up there. It was the going around the plantation back in the late 80s with my dad. I would see multiple experiments. One of the few experiments that I saw were uh, intercropping with peanuts, intercropping with vanilla. They did two two stumps, two trees per points. They even intercrop with banana. So it was really private sector led, and these companies would really spend money and time to really try to develop uh, the industry and try to develop new technologies to improve their productivity. And although there were some different government agencies who did provide help, it was still a lot of private sector initiatives.
Yeah, I also would like to add, Jom, that in the absence of PRRI before, there was also an active involvement from state colleges and universities like the University of Southern Mindanao in North Cotabato. This is in Central Mindanao. And the Western Mindanao State University in Zamboanga Peninsula. And Jose Rizal Memorial College also in Zamboanga, now a state university also in Zamboanga Peninsula. These are, and we have also the Central Mindanao State University. So these are state universities and colleges who are or that are actively involved on research and development and even extension services within their respective areas.
interesting. In fact, again, what is coming is the importance of the private sector in the R&D part, and also the role of other government departments like the Department of Agriculture and also universities is interesting to know. In fact, actually, in the case of some of the other countries, it was the RRI that was initially established. So that means it was initially RRI was established, but in the Philippines has a different model. RRI came at a later stage, but there were other institutions as well as the private sector to bridge that gap. That is interesting observation. Now we are going further deep into the subjects. So now, right now, we are discussing on the R&D part, research and development. So what are the major research achievements by the Philippines over the past two decades? Maybe in the past few years, you can highlight some of the important research achievements in.
Yes, looking back on the last 20 years, one major achievement that we have is, of course, the clone that was researched under the research of Dr. Romulo Sena. He was able to bring out our USM1 under University of Southern Mindanao, a state university that he was working with. And it was funded by the Bureau of Agricultural Research, and he was able to bring out that clone. A very promising clone indeed. And today, with that clone, I'm talking about that clone because with that clone, with that single clone that we have invested so much time, it made us become a member of the IRDB exchanging of clones. Now, that one clone was able to bring in like 50 plus clones inside the country. And at this point in time, it is our very own Philippine Rubber Research Institute, together with the state university, who is taking care of that and doing some research on how it could probably improve our productivity as far as
In fact, in between my connection
loan is concerned. And we have already migrated. Used to be that. Sorry, Dr. Jacob, are you saying something?
No, because I had some connection problem in between. Now I can hear you. You can continue. My question was about the key research R&D achievement. You can continue.
Basically, the milestone that I can think of, again, first is we were able to bring out USM1, and of course the presence of Philippine Rubber Research Institute. A little history on that. I was mentioning that my late father was very much involved in the rubber industry, and one day we were cleaning our documents in the house, and I saw this manuscript, minutes of a meeting that was held 1971. There were like four major resolution, and number 3 resolution, that's the creation of the Philippine Rubber Research Institute. That was 1971. And finally, in 2010, our dear, it's a governor-elect now, Anhofer, was able to sponsor that bill for the crafting of the Philippine Rubber Institute. So that's the only two things that I can think of the last 2 decades.
Jack, for the information about the R&D achievements, and also you mentioned about how early initiative were taken to start a PRRI is interesting. So now we are going further. So it is heard that Philippines is often hit by several natural calamities. That could be in the form of recurring cyclone, torrential rains, and a flash flood. So Philippines actually is something like ecologically it's positioned in a fragile zone. So are the country's major rubber growing regions, for example, Mindanao, also prone to such calamities, natural calamities? So is the selection of clone made by giving due consideration to the recurrent calamities? It's a clone. So that means my question is whether the clone selection is giving due consideration to such calamities, or maybe you can answer in a different way. So what are the preparedness taken by the Philippines rubber industry or the BRRI or the farmers to take care of the recurrent cyclones and flood in the region? Thank you.
Well, to discuss further regarding those calamities, we are still lucky here in Mindanao, the region where we basically produce all our rubber, that we don't have that much typhoon. No? But some 5 years ago, it's quite scary. Perhaps climate change is real. That we got hit by a couple of typhoon that damaged some trees in the southeastern part of the country of Mindanao and a small part of Davao del Norte. And at this point in time, we are looking already on the possibility of introducing what Hainan, China did in their experimental area, that to be able to plant more windbreakers, perhaps will do. No? Windbreakers that might mitigate the negative effect of strong winds. But honestly, I am looking on the next 10 years, it might go further towards the west side of Mindanao. Little by little. At first, it was only hitting some 20 years ago, Dr. Jacob. It was just hitting the entry of typhoon coming from the Pacific will just enter normally on the tip of Mindanao, the north part of Mindanao and Visayas. It will just enter there. And then it went down and down and down. And now it's raring to go in the middle of Mindanao. And that is scary. But again, um, we have good experiences in already in China. Not perfect, but still, I am surely it will surely help. It will start planting windbreakers if we are intending to expand more. And just for information, we have still at least 1 million hectares available in Mindanao. As far as rubber farming is concerned, we have a very good water coming in through rains that is very good for rubber farming. Um, I think that would be all.
Okay, thank you for the information. Anything would you like to add, Mr. Gabriel or Dr. Siti? Would you like to add anything? Okay, can I go to the next topic? So we have been discussing on the R&D part. So anything to discuss further on the R&D part, or maybe we can shift focus a discussion on the extension part? Means a transfer of technology from the lab or from the research R&D center to the farm. So could you please explain the working of the extension management system for the rubber farmers in the country? So what is the system being employed for the effective transfer of technology from the R&D institution to the smallholder farmer in the remote villages? So what is the extension management system? Would you please explain? Thank you.
That the transfer of technology as far as mandate is concerned falls into the hands now of the Philippine Rubber Research Institute. They have the mandate to do that extension work. If you go back history, we are I believe that the incoming president-elect Bongbong Marcos, hopefully he will follow what his great dad has done during the term of Ferdinand Marcos, wherein he was really serious in the agriculture sector. There were thousands, tens of thousands of extensionists of different commodities that were going around the areas, promoting, helping the farmers, and how to do well, how to be productive, how to be successful. But nowadays, during the 1980s change of government, it was restructured. We have the local government units. In fairness with the local government units, after this restructuring, we had our own local municipal agricultural offices wherein there are agricultures embedded per commodity also. And I do believe that through the initiative of leadership of PRRI, it will go through and cascade down to the local government units to be able to extend the monitoring, the training of local farmers. Wherein the beauty of that also, Dr. Jacob, is that these local government units, the embedded agriculturists are based there, and they know the place very well. They know the farmers very well, and hopefully we'll be able to bring the technology down to the very last farmer on the ground.
Thank you for the information, Mr. Jack. In fact,
I think I'd like to add. I think Jack
yeah, please.
forgot to mention about TESDA NC2. So we do have the institute, which is the technical institute, and they do have a NC2 program on natural rubber tapping, and so that should be cascaded this year, and they're starting to roll that program out. And Jack is one of the people behind the NC2 program, so I think it just passed his mind.
So, yeah. I think Department of Trade or DTI also is having some farmer orientation program, right, Dr. Siti? DTI also is having some farmer orientation program.
DTI is into extension services, but limited to entrepreneurial development, management training for farmers, for SMEs engaged in the rubber processing or in rubber production. But I also would like to mention the efforts of the regional offices of Department of Science and Technology, because they also have some extension services, particularly in transfer of technology. Not only by P-card and P-shared for the downstream and P-card for the upstream, but also the regional offices in all regions nationwide and in Mindanao for the rubber industry. So they also have extension services because they also have provincial offices that cater to the needs of the industry.
Thank you for the information. In fact, actually, Philippines, because the rubber, there are large number of islands, and also the languages, the regional languages. There are plenty of languages. So extension system is actually a challenging job in a country like Philippines. But still, this is being managed because of the various organizations and the various agencies involved. That is something important. So Philippines is one country, maybe partly it is similar to Indonesia also, because of the large number of islands and different languages. A centralized extension system may not effectively work. So maybe regional, region-based attempt could be more effective in a country like Philippines. Thank you for the information sharing. So right now we were discussing about the extension system. Anything more to add on extension system? Now we are having. Now we are going into the average yield. Average yield, I mean average yield, annual yields of natural rubber per hectare. This is considered very low in the Philippines if you take as a national level. But at the same time, if you take some of the individual companies, for example, the company owned by, chaired by Mr. Jack, the yield is very high. But at the small holding sector, yield is very low. So the national average yield is much low in the case of Philippines. So there is R&D is there, extension system is there, but the yield realized at the farm level is low if you take the national average. Of course, there are estates and plantation companies which are performing much better. So this low may be because of the frequent occurrence of the natural calamities, could be, and also there could be errors in the estimation method being followed by the Department of Statistics. So would you like to share something about reflect your views about the low national average yield per hectare?
Well, Dr. Jacob, I believe you have inside information of my production since you once upon a time visited my farm. But you look at the national average, we are somehow ranked on the bottom 5 of the national of the Asian producing rubber Asian producing countries. And basically the reason behind that is you look at history. The multinational companies left at 1986. Would you believe after redistributing that to the smallholders, about 50% of which until today exists. They still exist, and the way I look at it, it is not going to be more than 150 productive trees per hectare on those old senile trees. And it's one of the major reasons why our average production is that low. All right. Now, second is as much as you would like to intensify on the transfer technology, wherein we get to go more than 1,500 kilos dry per hectare per year, there are a lot of constraints. And number one of that is, of course, the money that's going to be involved in replanting, the machineries that we needed. We have inadequate number of quality planting materials, or the control that needs to be the policies to control the flow of scrupulous nursery operators. We need the best quality planting materials. We need to to stop the overexploitation of rubber trees. There was a time like a few years ago, 5 years ago, and I don't know who spearheaded it, but there was a rapid information dissemination, the use of Etefon gas to produce more latex, and that is a time. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was a time when the price of rubber was up to like $2 per kilo of a kaplam, and people wants to have more. So there was an excessive, and when the prices went down, the more usage of Etefon gas, over exploitation means low production, and after such a time, the production will go even worse. No, so nowadays I'm still very optimistic because if you look at the hectareage, the total hectareage of the Philippine rubber industry, we basically have 220 to 250,000 hectares only. And there's a big room for expansion and big room for us to somehow reinvent things and make things work. And using the modern rubber technology, we can apply it. And perhaps our our low percentage of density of production per hectare per year will somehow increase dramatically over the next 15 or 20 years.
Anything to add, Dr. Siti or Mr. Igot? Anything to add?
John, we are still hoping in the future that we would be able to improve the productivity of particularly the new plantations, and particularly if our farmers will adopt new technology and propagation or in planting rubber.
So that helps to understand why the average yield per hectare is low in the case of Philippines. Now, how significant is the small? Actually, in fact, what we heard that in the small holding sector, the yield is low, but the plantations are performing better. So, how significant is the small holding sector in the country's total rubber area and production? Or maybe you can share what percentage of the total area and production is represented by the small holding. And also, if information available, you can share the more details about the structure of the industry. So how the small holding and estates are divided. So if some information, if you have, thank you.
Firstly, Dr. Jacob, Philippines doesn't have government estate-owned plantation, not a single estate for that matter. Second is when you talk about large plantation, you're actually referring to the cooperatives. As I mentioned earlier ago, these cooperatives are used to be the old plantations coming from multinational that was given to them. And there are some smaller cooperatives that planted newly the areas with rubber. And since the very beginning, um, it is deemed to have a very low production for as far as production is concerned. It's going to be deemed to have a low production. And why is that? Because of the way that we manage our farm. If we go back to traditional farming system, it's not going to be more than 1,200 kilos dry per hectare per year. And luckily, we have already here in the Philippines a much advanced farming system wherein we could get to at least 1,500, 1,800 kg per hectare per year. More so if you were going to be very serious in the making of the farms, you can go more than that. No, it's proven and tested that it go more than 2,000 kg per hectare per year. So going back on the question on how hard it would be now for the smallholders. Smallholders, just like other countries, we have more than, I would say, 99% of the Philippine rubber farmers are smallholders, and each and every one of us are suffering right now, especially with these prices. And it's also basically the reason why there are a lot of research coming out of intercropping on rubber, changing crops, and many farmers are already cutting their old senile trees. These even younger trees are overexploited during the time the prices are high, overexploitation using Etefon that cause a lot of topping panel dryness. So honestly, I look at this as a challenge, a big challenge for the rubber industry in the Philippines. More so, uh, very happy also that we have, there was already a small announcement yesterday by no less than our incoming president that he will give more focus on the agriculture. And definitely, with the rubber roadmap in place in his hands, there's going to be something good that's going to happen in the next years to come. Thank you.
City, want to add something? City, would you like to
Yeah,
add anything?
20, was it in 2015 or 2016? I'm not sure, but the study is with me. There was a study conducted by the World Bank through a local consultant. It says in the study that more than 90% of the land planted to rubber belong to the smallholders. I guess there was some definition on what are classified as smallholder, or in like 2 to 3 hectares or 2 to 5 hectares. So I think that was the basis of the World Bank study. So that's the only I think empirical research that we can cite, citing the distribution of the area planted to rubber in the Philippines.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just would like to add also that
Yeah, please.
with how the ownership is on agricultural land is in the Philippines, it's very difficult for corporations and individuals to have a significant land holdings, because there's a limit, I think 5 hectares of agricultural land per person. So that actually limits the big rubber plantation. And um, the also, if we look at it in a global environment, the definition of large rubber plantation or large plantation in general, we do not have that in the Philippines. I think one of the biggest rubber plantations, or if you have a rubber plantation that's over 1,000 hectares, you're already considered a very, very big rubber plantation in the Philippines. Majority are really between uh, 3 to maybe 5 hectares, and then you have a handful that's around 200 to 500, and then another smaller handful that's between 750 to 1,500 hectares. And we do have some I think this was during the Gloria administration. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources did have some. Um, they had what they called the Industrial Forestry Management Agreement, and they had the Socialized Industrial Forestry Management Agreement. So these are cuts of land that's around 500 hectares per agreement, and there are quite a few that were able to avail of them. As to whether they have been able to successfully transform into productive rubber plantation, there's a big question mark on that. But there are quite a few who hold these agreements and who have a few hundred hectares of rubber.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel, for the information sharing. So that means we got some idea about the average yield per hectare in the case of small holding, and also the yield in the case of estates. We got some idea, and also we got some information of what are the reasons behind. So now we will go into another important discussion points: incentives by the governments. So what are the major forms of incentives given by the governments for the promotion and development of natural rubber production, processing, and trading? So my specific question on that: are farmers given any financial incentive either for new planting or replanting rubber? Thank you.
If we talk about incentives, there's no specific incentives for the natural rubber industry in the Philippines. But for the downstream, if you locate your factory or your company in the Philippine Economic Zone Authority accredited export processing zone, then of course you will be entitled to, for example, the most popular is the 5-year income tax holidays, and there's a tax-free importations of equipment and facilities in other incentives provided by the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, but only if you locate in the export processing zones. The Board of Investment, also with the Department of Trade and Industry, also provides incentive for those who would locate in identified investment priority areas, and also investing in an industry or a prioritized investment or industry priorities. So there are also similar incentives like what is being provided by Philippine Economic Zone Authority. Then on top of that, we have the local government units, provinces and cities who have that have their own local investment code, and it also provides similar incentives if you locate to areas identified as a priority investment area. So it's not only for rubber, but it covers other industries. It covers other investment areas. Now, we don't have the specific financial incentive for farmers like what Malaysia is providing to their farmers. Unfortunately, not in the Philippines. This has been the battle cry of our rubber farmers for the government to provide specific financial assistance to them. But in terms of equipment in facilities, agencies like the Department of Agrarian Reform for the Agrarian Reform Cooperatives, they provide equipment, and the Department of Agriculture also provide equipment, and even the Department of Trade and Industry provides equipment to processing, for example. So, but not in terms of financial assistance. loans through banks, but you are, of course, subject to the usual banking requirements, the traditional loan requirements, now which the farmers, of course, cannot afford.
Interesting.
Uh,
Interesting, Madam Siti. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Jack, please.
I would like to add on that matter, no? Specifically in the mention of Dr. City on the financial assistance that should be given, especially on the farming, on the production side. No? How I envy the Malaysian rubber farmers and the Thailanders. They get to collect rubber levy and managed by RISDA or the Felda, and for Malaysia, I guess it's the Malaysian Rubber Board on top of that, wherein they get incentive, farmers get incentive in replanting or new planting. I think for replanting, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Jacob, they're given like $3,000 US dollars just to go replanting,
Yeah,
right?
around $3,500. It actually varies
Wow.
in the Sabah Sarawak higher rates given at the Sabah and Sarawak, and then the rates prevailing in the mainland, it is around 3,500 US dollar.
All right. In one, just for the
Holding.
information also of this group, we have tried in one of the PICAF meeting or the National Banner Program meeting. There was an attempt to discuss this matter, and there was a big question: who will hold the money that will be collected through the processors? So there you go. The importance, no? You were commending us, the Philippines, for not having the rubber board, but we were able to do it yet. But objectively, we want to have a Philippine rubber board to 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 oversee all issues and concerns, especially on when it comes to assisting farmers. Um, these are farmers been crying out loud, though, to us, to government agencies, especially the old plantations coming from the cooperatives. They really want to change their old trees to new trees now, especially with with the prices now. We can clearly see that the only one that can survive this kind of prices are the high producing, or the yield per hectare period is somehow around 1,005 and above. Lower than that, it's barely going to be very hard to survive these prices.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. In fact, Malaysia and Thailand do, they levy a cess on rubber. That means they will be levying cess on exported natural rubber. So whatever they are getting from the cess, they are giving back to the farmer. This is the way it is operated. Malaysia and both Malaysia and Thailand are giving this replanting subsidy at a higher rate. The justification is that actually for the farmer to cut down his trees and replant, when he is cutting down his trees for replanting, he has no income from rubber for the next 6-7 year period. So, and also he needs money to undertake replanting. Development cost is there. So suppose there is no fund available with him, he will be compelled to prolong replanting and trees getting aged, and that would be a reason for the lower yield. So this is a justification. So in fact, the government is giving subsidy, but government will be getting, when the farmers are replanting, production will be more, government will be, and the export will be more. That means the cess will be high. So whatever amount given by the governments will be received back, because production will go up because of the replanting. Yield is becoming higher, export is going higher. That means the cess collection is higher, so government will get back. Only thing, it takes years. So maybe in the Philippine Technical Working Group or some other forum, you can take up, you have the new leader at the top. So that means that this could be a starting point.
Yes.
Yes. Added to that, Dr. Jacob, the reason why there are more rubber farmers that was engaged during the early years of the industry, during the time, because Development Bank of the Philippines gave a program, a lending program. It was not for free. It was not a grant. It was a loan. But there was a grace period of 6 years before you start paying your loan, meaning there's going to be more than enough time for the farmer to grow trees and earn. Unlike today, we tried to make some negotiation, but the most that the Land Bank of the Philippines can give is 3 years grace period, and that will not work. Hopefully, there's going to be again a review on that. If you want to promote rubber farming, there should be at least 6 years of a grace period before we start paying our loans.
Okay, okay. So one more justification for subsidy. So countries which are getting subsidy, the cost of production per kilogram is lower because they are getting subsidy. And the Philippine exporters are competing with those getting subsidy. That means this is a question on export competitiveness also. So these are the points you can use to convince the governments to introduce a replanting subsidy scheme.
Sure, we'll look into that, John, no? Because we right now, although there are also international organizations partnering with government agencies, like, for example, the Department of Agrarian Reform is partnering with International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IPAD. But still, the program caters only to the agrarian reform cooperatives, and the assistance given still in terms of equipment, and I guess in some instances provision of seedlings. Department of Agriculture is also partnering with IFAD and through the Philippine Rural Development Program. But again, they provide rubber processing equipment. So it's not financing, but it's actually equipment being funded from an international program, partnering with the government agencies.
Okay.
I just like to touch back on
Yeah,
the
please.
funding that we get or is available to us. So the Land Bank and DPP, I think, which is also now part of the Land Bank, they did have a program for the tree planting program. Although there is really a disconnect between the people that propose and create these programs and what's actually happening in the ground. For the longest time, they put a cap on the amount that you can loan per hectare. From my understanding, it's around 120 or 150,000 pesos, which is
Yes.
far below what is needed when you want to plant in a modern and technologically advanced planting system. So that's also one of the disconnect that's aside from what Jack said, that the grace period is not or the cash flow that's between what the bank want and what is actually in available for the farmer. It doesn't connect. Then you also have the limited or the cap that is allowed on a per hectare basis. So although recently I think they are removing the cap, so you can propose the amount that you want, but still there is the requirement that is required for getting a loan, especially on rubber, is very litigious, and it's very difficult for a normal farm to get. It's actually very difficult for corporations to get, so let alone smallholders.
Interesting observation, and also it's good that we discuss these points. So next discuss point is about the processing of the fresh latex. So in fact, we have got some idea from the initial video. I presume that the fresh latex produced by the rubber tree in the country is largely processed into TSR, technically specified rubber. So could you share some information about the various processed forms of natural rubber in Philippines? So how the produce is processed and relative share? Could you please briefly explain?
Fresh latex. First, we don't have any. We don't produce any more centrifuge latex here in the Philippines. There was one company that was engaged in that some long time ago, and the production cost was just too high. Since the absence of big estates and big companies, it's going to be very, very hard to bring all those latex in one building. And secondly, basically all the coplams are being produced into SPR, or technically specified rubber. We have very few smoke sheets here. I believe it's going to be between 98, 99% are converted into crumb rubber.
Okay. Okay, we have the interpretation. Okay. 23 factories. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the information. So another important point, another discussion point. Now let us focus on the downstream manufacturing. So far, our discussions were mainly focused on the upstream sector. So we are fortunate to have Mr. Gabriel with us, who is representing, who is leading the Rubber Industry Association. Mr. Gabriel, could you please give a brief profile of the rubber-based manufacturing industry? In fact, you have given the picture. You have already given the information about the profile of the industry there. So you have also presented number of manufacturing units operated in the country. Maybe you can share what are the major products, rubber products manufactured in the country, just for the information about for the audience. What are the various rubber products manufactured in the country that you will do?
Okay, so the biggest rubber manufacturer in the Philippines is Yokohama. Although they're not a member of our association, but they are the biggest. And I think they consume upwards of 20,000 metric tons of natural rubber a year. For our association, the major consumer of natural rubber produce motorcycle and bicycle tires. They also produce belts and different weather belts and engine mounts. They also produce different automotive equipments. There are a few that do footwear, but that's very limited. There's also another Japanese company that does surgical gloves, but that's mainly for export to Japan. So the volume is very negligible. But a big percentage of the users of natural rubber do produce cars and motorcycle tires.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel, for the information. So coming about again on the manufacturing side, or the manufactured rubber products, is Philippines a net importer or a net exporter in terms of the various auto tires? That is, the country needs auto tire. So is Philippines a net importer or an exporter? Or what are the policies and strategies to attract investments in rubber good manufacturing industry? So Madam City had earlier mentioned some incentives for the downstream sector. So does the country have a rubber-based manufacturing cluster, such as rubber cities or rubber parks, to encourage value addition by providing common infrastructure facilities? So maybe you can share some information about the country's position. As is it a net importer or a net exporter of the various auto tires? That is one question, one part. Then about the incentives and other facilities offered for overseas investors. Thank you. Mr. Gabriel I think Mr. Gabriel can answer this. Thank you.
Okay, so for motorcycle tires, we are a net importer. Are the four motorcycle tire manufacturers that we have that's under our association cannot actually produce the demand for the country. So we are a net importer of motorcycle tires. We actually import from Indonesia. I think I've even seen some from India and from Thailand, from Malaysia. So those are uh, so we do import with that. For automotive tires, we are also a net importer. We only have one automotive tire manufacturer that does for commercial and for commercial cars. So that's Yokohama. But they do export majority of their products to, I think, the US. So for all the other tire brands that you see, they're imported from different countries. So with regards to the infrastructure and how investments are clustered, uh, we do not have a rubber city like the ones that you see in China, but we do have export processing zones. So these export processing zones, they cater to the needs of the different companies. So it's actually, some of the export processing zones are autonomous in design, so which means that all the government agencies, whether it's the tax agencies, uh, the environment agencies, even trade agencies, it's all under the authority of the export processing zone. So this is like Subic, uh, and I think Cagayan, and even Zamboanga export processing zone. They are autonomous in design. So they give incentives, aside from the 5-year income tax holiday, aside from uh, tax-free importation of equipment. They do also provide uh, 5% income tax. So that's actually one of the biggest draws that these export processing zone have. And other incentives that the government provides, uh, it really depends on the negotiations. Sometimes you can get discounts or rebates in electricity, and then there are other uh, incentives that's given locally. And then export processing zone mainly are attached with ports, and they also provide and have their own power. So as you know, in some areas in Mindanao, power is an issue. So having export processing zone that have their own uh, access to power is a big thing.
Yes, if I may add, John.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
if you talk about clustering, or for example, the likes of Rubber City and China, Rubber City and Thailand, of course, we don't have that. The uh, Mr. Iko emphasized that already. But if you look at the geographical concentration of the natural rubber activities in the country, um, upstream and midstream are concentrated in Mindanao area, and downstream and the southern Luzon. This is in Calabarzon, and Central Luzon in Pampanga, and Clark, Subic, and then pockets of rubber manufacturing activities in Visayas, and maybe soon in Mindanao. So that's how the distribution of the economic activities in the natural rubber industry in the Philippines. So in terms of opportunities, from the discussion of Mr. Igut earlier, we are a net importer of a certain product like motorcycle tires. So obviously, there's still a vast opportunity for investor to get into motorcycle tire manufacturing in the Philippines. In fact, we advise them to locate in Mindanao because of the accessibility to source of raw materials.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
Madam City.
to
Yeah.
add
Please.
to add on that, Dr. Jacob, uh, I had a chance to have this very important visitor coming from the big company head. He visited us here in Mindanao, and I was able to bring him to the farm. And he was here on a very important mission to sign an agreement with the export processing zone. Head China is going to be here in a very short time. Hopefully next year they'll be already operating here. They're relocating now here in Mindanao, specifically in Panabo area, and that's going to be a very big company, and that's going to be a big opportunity for the Philippine rubber industry, not only on the downstream but also in the upstream, because they're also very much interested to make their own farms and to have partners with cooperatives and other companies as well.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yes, just to add to that. So
Yeah,
with
please.
Head
Please.
coming into the Philippines,
Yeah.
and with Dunlop being located in Bataan, which is the northern part of the Philippines, when Head does wind down their operation in China, the Philippines will have a champion product, and we will be one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, manufacturer and exporter of tennis balls in the world.
Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. So looking into the constraints ahead, what are the major constraints for the Philippines to come out as a manufacturing hub of rubber-based products? What are the major constraints? And also you may also point out the opportunities.
So for constraints, there's actually a few of them. Um, One of the biggest constraints that we have is the high cost of electricity in the Philippines. That's everyone knows that, so it's something that the government has to address soon if they want to encourage manufacturers to set up in the Philippines. The other one, I think it's also being tackled now, is the cost of inter-island logistics, especially for raw materials. If and there are companies that do want to locate, and they have an impression that if they locate in Mindanao, that peace and order situation is not as good, so they look at locating in Visayas and Mindanao, well, Visayas and Luzon, which is fair enough, but peace and order has improved a lot in Mindanao, so that's actually that's a wrong impression, but it's very hard to remove that. But with that, if they do locate in Luzon, and they locate in the export processing zone in Luzon, and they want to source their raw materials locally, which is based in Mindanao, the cost of bringing the raw materials from Davao, from Zamboanga to Manila is actually more expensive than exporting the product from Zamboanga to China. So that's something that has to be addressed. And during the pandemic, it was highlighted even more. And I think that DTI and DA and other government agencies are already looking into ways to bring down that cost, because it's substantial. And with the cost of fuel just going up, then the cost of logistics just continue to go up.
Interesting observation, Mr. Gabriel. Anything you add, Dr. City or Mr. Jack?
Yes, as far as power supply is concerned, I've been serving as a board of director of one of the electric cooperatives here, and still active now. And there are a lot of plants already, plants already, especially on the development of renewable sources embedded in the respective cooperatives. Especially if you look at Mindanao, we have the water, we have the geothermal plants. There'll be more plants that will be readily be available in the next few years, and then the production cost will really bring it down on the cost, and hopefully that will be attained by the next government leadership that the prices. And we had a chance during the campaign period. There was literally a chance with the power sector group to have a conversation face to face with the newly elected president, and he was very, very serious in addressing the high power costs of the Philippines. So with that, no, with that again, testimony for as far as peace and order is concerned in Mindanao, a very good testimony for that is head is going to be here in Mindanao. I mean, that's the biggest rubber tennis balls producer based on numbers. I think they are the biggest company that produce tennis balls, and he was very impressed on how things have changed. He comes in the Philippines regularly, and he saw for himself that we drove down southern part without any bodyguards, without no frills, and he was very, very happy to see that everything has changed as far as peace and order is concerned.
Interesting information. So Philippines is a oil producing country. It's an oil producer, crude oil producer.
We don't produce crude oil, but we produce the gas in Manampaya Island. But
Okay.
there's already going to be an exploration that's going to happen very soon. There are sites that Liguasan Mars used to be a stronghold of rebels, but it's already peaceful there. And there's going to be an exploration very soon to be headed by no less than by the Department of Energy to look into it and explore for the gas presence. And hopefully we could harvest and produce electricity here in the central Mindanao itself.
Okay. Coming to the supply chain, could we house information about the supply chain system of the Philippines industry? Could you please explain the flow of rubber right from the farm to the manufacturing units within the country or to an exporter? Of course, the supply chain could be different between a small holding and also between and compared with the larger states. So that means in the case of a small holder, there could be more number of intermediaries, but in the case of larger states, it may be a direct. So could you please share some information about the supply chain system from farm until the manufacturer or exporter?
Yes, we have a very interesting chart prepared by Dr. Rolando D. of the University of the Asia in the Pacific on the flow of natural rubber from the producer, from the farmers to the market. So we have, for example, the Philippine natural rubber. It goes to first Philippine rubber manufacturers, and Yokohama Tire Philippines is prominently cited because this is the biggest single user of natural rubber in the Philippines. And then we export also natural rubber in raw, in Kaplams to Malaysia. And processed or TSR, technically specified rubber, exported to China, to Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and other countries. And from the Philippine rubber manufacturers, which is the tires and non-tires, so it is exported to other countries, and some production is retained in the Philippine market. For example, Yokohama, as a requirement of locating in an export processing, so 90% of its production should be exported, and 10% is retained for domestic market distribution. And then for those that are exported to other countries, for example, China, it is also converted into tires, into non-tires, automotive parts, etc., and also being exported to other countries. And also to the Philippines. So as cited earlier by Mr. Igot, we are a net importer, particularly of a specific product of a motorcycle tire. So this is the flow of the natural rubber from the production to the end market. So like if we talk about the supply chain from the farm gate, so from the farmer to the trading center, or direct to processor, or direct to buying agents, and then processor to, of course, to rubber manufacturers, to Yokohama, and then export to other countries, as I cited earlier. So that's basically the supply chain as far as the natural rubber industry in the Philippines, John.
So that's clear that the picture actually well illustrates the flow. Anything to add, Mr. Jack and Mr. Gabriel? Would you like to add anything? I think this the chart is actually well illustrative. It covers the whole system. Thank you very much for that. Now, actually, for the last 1.5 hours, we were discussing on this. We have three more questions. 3 or 4, I think, a few more points to be discussed now. First of all, and the next discussion points. So what are the various initiatives taken by the governments to increase the transparency of natural rubber trading and thereby help rubber farmers to realize better farm gate price? I mean, initiative taken by the governments or other organization to increase the transparency to realize better farm gate price.
Yeah, and in 2012, when we started our clustering activities for the Philippine natural rubber industry, we started recognizing the problems of the farmers, and in terms of marketing, as well as the pricing, meaning the transaction between the seller and the buyers, or between the farmers, particularly smallholders, and the buying agents, the traders, the processors. So although there was already an initiative by the local government, the Department of Agriculture, for the trading center, they call that locally as Bagsakan Center. And we supported that, the field rubber, through the efforts also of the Department of Trade and Industry. We established mainly in 2 regions, the rubber trading and auction centers. I guess there are already around 50 in 2 regions. Zamboanga Peninsula, this is the Western Mindanao area, and Soxargent, specifically in North Cotabato or the Central Mindanao. But the biggest trading center is located in Zamboanga, Sibugay, which is in Zamboanga Peninsula. So it serves as a venue for farmers, traders, and consolidators to transact business under the close supervision of the local government units, because the project actually is in close coordination with the local government units. The Department of Trade and Industry provides the weighing scales, because this was really a big issue, the weighing of natural rubber by the traders and by the farmers, which is really a big issue raised by the farmers. So when the trading centers were established, the DTI came in also providing weighing scales to the trading centers, duly calibrated by the Department of Science and Technology to ensure accuracy in the weights, because people can be so in terms of doing something to manipulate the weighing scale. So that's one transparency initiative that we did. So aside from working closely with the local government units, other agencies like the Department of Agriculture, and even Department of Science and Technology, so we also initiated in the trading center. We also post the Office of the Department of Trade and Industry in the provinces ensure that every trading day, because it is not daily, there are trading centers who do the trading on the weekends, some on weekdays. DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry, ensures that a price reference is also posted in the trading center. So price reference, no, the price reference is just to serve as basis for the farmers to make a decision on whether to sell or not. But in most instances, the prevailing market price or buying price is even higher than the price reference. So in most instances, but as I said earlier, the price being provided by DTI to the farmers, actually we educated the farmers. We created, when I was still with DTI, we created the regional price management system initially for the Zamboanga Peninsula, and we taught the farmers, or we teach the farmers how to calculate the price using their smartphone. We base it on the Malaysian Rubber Exchange posting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We normally do it. I hope DTI is still doing it up to today, every day, and not just posting the price reference at the trading center, but also in the barangays, barangay rubber producing barangays within the province or within municipality. But again, the price reference, as I said earlier, is just to serve as basis for farmers to make a decision whether to sell or not. This is not necessarily the price that the buyer should pay. At the end of the day, it's still the agreement between the seller and the buyer. So those are two initiatives so far that we have established to minimize the issues between the farmers and the traders when it comes to buying of natural rubber in the provinces or in the municipalities.
Thank you,
We
Dr.
don't
Siti.
yeah, just we don't have that big trading center like the central market, rubber market of Thailand. We don't have that. We are hoping that we would be able to do that in the Philippines. So the high-tech online trading being done by the Rubber Authority of Thailand through the central rubber market. We don't have that. What we have is the small rubber trading and auction centers.
Okay. It's good to know that DTI is taking so much activities for improving the market transparency, helping the farmers to know what is to update on the latest trend. It's really appreciated. Actually, it's a good initiative. Anything to add, Mr. Jack and Mr. Gabriel? Anything to add on that?
Yes, in appreciation. No, in appreciation of what is happening today, that is a very clear manifestation of how good our former national focal person from the Department of Trade Industry in the person of Dr. Siti Jain, that was really good and institutional and cascaded to other provinces. And in relation to that, we in the Philippines are also very appreciative on no less than Dr. John Jacobs posting in Facebook, daily posting, literally doing it almost every day, even twice a day. Yeah, that's a very good gesture, Dr. Jacobs, in helping not only the Philippines, but the total world rubber industry. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
But if I may add, Joe, the RPMS, so the rubber price management system, is already due for review. In fact, there's a data there in the posting by PRI that should be corrected, and it should not be there actually. but maybe in the next meeting of the field rubber, we'll already be tackling on that issue. I don't
Okay,
know
okay, good.
Mr. Igot and Mr. Jackson Dickey have noticed that, but there's
Yeah.
something there that should not be there, actually, because it was just a formula for calculation, but that should not be there. Okay, so thank you. But we'll be reviewing that pretty soon.
So it's good to know that this discussion has included some agenda for the next meeting of the field rubber working group. Very good. Additional agenda for the next meeting of the working group. Good. Yeah. So in fact, this discussion actually this point, another point which I would like to raise, we already discussed. Philippines does not have a Philippines rubber board such a body that comprehensively represents the interest of all segments of the country's rubber value chain. What is the system being followed in the country to identify the policy needs of the various stakeholders of the rubber industry and frame the policies accordingly? So how the policy needs are identified from the stakeholders, what is the system? So in fact, we have indirectly touched these points. Maybe if you want to add more points, or if you want to highlight some of the importance of the system, please share.
Yeah, right now we have two venues where we discussed policy issues, policy concerns, or even proposal for policy formulation. The field rubber also handles issues on policies, and second is the committee under the Department of Agriculture being chaired by Jack, the National Banner Program Committee specifically for rubber, where we extensively discuss policy needs, policy concerns, policy issues affecting the growth of the Philippine natural rubber industry. We're still hoping that we would be able to push the creation of the Philippine Rubber Industry Development Board. It has been what 10 years uh, since we started the initiative to create initially a council, but it then pushed through. So we decided to engage in work closely with the House of Representatives, with the Senate for enactment of a rubber law. There are two pending bills actually in the both House of the Representatives in the Senate. But with the 19th Congress convening in July, there is a need to refile the bill both in the lower house and in the upper house. It's good that we still have for the Senate, we still have the sponsor of the Senate bill, Senator Mig Zuberi, got re-elected, and hopefully he would be. He's maybe the uh, majority leader of the Senate majority leader, and then at the lower house, the original sponsor is now replaced by the Sun. So we are hoping that we will be able to also encourage the Sun to make the rubber bill his first bill in Congress. So we're still very positive despite the 10 years that we have lost pushing for the enactment of the two bills, but we didn't get discouraged. We're going to move forward in hoping that the 19th Congress, when it opens in July, we would be able to push for the enactment of the two bills. So, and ultimately create the Philippine Rubber Industry Development Board. Along the way,
The good news there, the good news there. The
we
good news there, Dr. Jacob. Just a couple of days ago, me and Dr. City was discussing on how to go about it, and I was inspired by the thought of um, taking this course, that it should be within this next six years,
It's unstable connection.
That the creation will be finally approved and that goes through like what the PRI, it took 42 years before it was realized. It's going to be a bigger announced Philippine Rubber Development Board.
We don't want to happen that to the rubber board. By the time, my God, I will be, I, I will, I will be how I will be resting in peace. So we don't want that to happen. We wanted the board to be created, hopefully within the 5 year or within the term of the next president. Hopefully, that's just, we were just very positive, John, that it would happen because there are so many initiatives, so many programs that we wanted be implemented for the rubber industry, which we cannot push effectively unless we have one organization that would coordinate and oversee the programs and projects of all agencies allied to the development of the industry. We cannot afford just like what is going on right now. Right now we have the field rubber, which is only a technical working group. And before the field rubber, programs are spread over mainly 5 agencies. 5 agencies, but there are programs, there are initiatives by these agencies. But we need a one direction, we need one goal, we need a one objective where everybody would be working for, so that we would be able to go there on a concerted effort. With like other countries, we have India Rubber Board, we have the Malaysian Rubber Board, we have the Rubber Authority of Thailand. My God, if we can only do what Thailand is doing, what Malaysia is doing, what India is doing, then we will probably be also a significant player in the global natural rubber industry. Right now, we're just a very, very small player with the total production of only 200,000 metric tons. Good, we are able to already rectify our statistics, Joe. So you will have probably many more in doing projection for production of natural rubber at the global level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siti. So in fact, we organized this ENA dialogue in the right time because Philippines has a new leadership, and this is a right time to discuss and present the major ideas before the government. We organized this on the right time. Yeah. So can I move into the next discussion point, unless we have further points to be added to that? So coming to the next discussion point, so we are coming almost end of the program. So now next discussion point is on the road ahead. So what are the long-term vision and goals of the Philippines rubber industry? For example, what is the targeted size of NR industry, say by 2040? After 20 years, what is the targeted size of the NR industry in the country? How much area rubber will be occupied by after 20 years? And what are the targeted production and consumption of NR in the country after 20 years? What policies are needed to attain these targeted goals? And also, what are the constraints as well as opportunities? So could you please, and also we know that there are climate change and other serious challenges facing the rubber cultivation world over. So considering all various constraints as well as challenges, could you please summarize what are the what is a vision, long-term vision, and also strategies to attain the goals?
Okay, John, the field rubber, as you pretty well know, has spearheaded or facilitated the crafting of the successor roadmap.
Yeah.
I say success. Yeah. I say successor roadmap because we have the 2017 to 2022 roadmap, which I believe I gave a copy to in RPC.
Yes.
Now, yeah. Now the field rubber is finalizing the 2022-2040 roadmap, and it should come out anytime in the mid of June. And in that roadmap, it includes the vision. Of course, it has to be there for an inclusive, globally competitive, and resilient rubber industry, providing sustainable benefits to all stakeholders, meaning from the farmers to the manufacturers to up to the exporters. And it contains the mission of the field rubber. The field rubber, as I said earlier, is composed of government agencies, of a private sector organization, of state universities and colleges, financing institutions, government-owned and controlled financing institutions, other associations. We have this mission that the development of a cost competitive, quality-driven, supply-reliable, innovative product, diversified value chain from primary production to manufacturing and marketing of rubber-based products under sustainable practices. So climate change, environmental issue has already been considered when the mission was crafted. The goal is to increase the benefits of all the stakeholders in the rubber industry, thereby spreading the gains down to the smallholders in the remote barangays in all rubber producing provinces in the regions. And given this goal, we have the following objectives. That this is our target actually, that by the end of 2040, we should have, still 18 years from now, my God, still 18 years from now, we should have created the Philippine Rubber Industry Development Board. Secondly, we should have increased the number of accredited plant nurseries in Budworth Gardens, because this is still an issue in the Philippines. We should have expanded the total area of rubber to at least 300,000 hectares. I've been saying, can we do it 500,000? But the private sector, no, only 300,000. So the decision is with the private sector, because in the first place, they are the farmers. It's their area being planted to rubber. So they made the decision. The government cannot say, oh, you have to plant 500,000 with no support from the government. I don't think we would be able to do that. Then to improve farm productivity, from right now, the national average is only 650 kilos per hectare per year to 2,000 kilograms or 2 metric tons dry rubber per hectare per year by 2040. Then to increase investments in rubber plantation, processing plants in rubber products manufacturing by 5% annually. So we're very conservative in our target for manufacturing. Then to increase the export volume of process in manufactured rubber products by 10% annually, and reduce our imports of natural rubber by 5%, especially by major rubber-based manufacturing. Because, for example, Yokohama is still importing from Vietnam, from Thailand, and I think even from Indonesia. So we wanted major rubber-based product manufacturers to reduce their imports by sourcing their local requirement from our rubber traders or rubber processors in the country. Okay, so next, do we still have, so given that 6 objectives, major objectives, we have these development strategies. Of course, foremost in our strategy is still the creation of the Philippine Rubber Industry Development Board that will enforce policies in set direction, one direction in all aspects of the rubber industry value chain. adoption of the plant nursery accreditation in plant material certification, increase the number of N6 national seed something under the Department of Agriculture, expand production by adopting new and innovative technologies and good agricultural practices. We are currently reviewing the Philippine National Standards on Good Agricultural Practices for Rubber, provide support to rubber farmers in the form of farm expansion, farm mechanization, modernization, and quality production through the Convergence Initiative platform to be laid by the Department of Agriculture in other concerned government agencies and stakeholders. And 6, intensify research, development, and extension services to improve technology and production, I guess even in processing and in manufacturing. Promote investment in the manufacture of rubber-based products for domestic and global market. We are encouraging investors to locate in Mindanao, with head starting the activity there. I'm hoping that other investors would follow suit. Enhance information exchange to ensure sustainability of assistance and provide access to new markets and technologies. Information exchange, not just with the local institutions, but most particularly with international organizations. Develop industry financial services. This one is really needed to facilitate access to financing by farmers and entrepreneurs. Promote and advocate for compliance with product standards in market requirements in order to increase export rubber in rubber products, creation of new market, expansion of existing market by establishing standards or compliance to existing standards, both local and international standards, and sustain membership to intergovernmental organization as a platform for the exchange of information in technology and market. So like our membership with the IRRDB, with the NRPC, with IRSG, these are initiatives that should be sustained to allow us easier access to information in technology and innovation, as well as market information. Okay, so I guess that's about all. That actually summarizes the contents of the roadmap for 2022 to 2040 of the Philippine natural rubber industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siti. Thank you, Dr. Siti. In fact, a clear vision as well as strategies. So the major, the highlight I have seen is the expansion of area and also nearly threefold increase in the average yield per hectare, and also strategies to attain that. And the emphasis given on the downstream manufacturing sector, also emphasis on the export of value-added products. It's a very clear, as well as strategies are very clear. In fact, actually, maybe we wish that the Philippines will be attaining the targeted goals by 2040. So we are coming to the almost to the my part is coming to the end. So before, we have here an audience from different countries. In fact, just want to summarize the discussion so far. After that, I'll be handing out the floor to Mr. Peram, who is the CEO of the TechnoBiz. So in this discussion, we have seen, closely understood the status of NR industry in the Philippines, current status of NR industry in the Philippines, not only the current status, even we have seen the historical evolution with the all authentic information with the pictures. Thank you, Mr. Jack, for gathering all the information along with all the pictures. So we got a historical evolution, current status, as well as the opportunities and challenges in the way forward, long-term vision, also through the discussion, we have identified some areas where the Philippines Rubber Technical Working Group, also other stakeholder organizations will be looking into. For example, we discussed on the issue of the subsidy. While other major producing countries like Malaysia and Thailand are giving huge amount of replanting subsidy, and in fact, actually, the subsidy given to the farmers are getting back to the governments, and means in the form of cess. So that means not an additional burden to the government. It is actually getting back to the governments in the form of cess, or maybe government is collecting cess and giving back to the farmers. So that is a good system. So that means the Philippines will be, if the cess is introduced, then the Philippines will be getting a huge amount, a huge fund for the supporting the development activities, and also farmers also will be getting subsidy, and the aged trees could be replanted on time, and that will help the objective of reaching the threefold increase in the average yield per hectare. And also what is another point which I noticed among the strategies is the accreditation of nurseries, which is very important, because when the price went up during the last price boom period during 2010 and 2011, so many unauthorized nurseries came up, and that is one reason why the yield is very low in several countries, because of the poor planting materials used by the farmers. So the accreditation of nurseries is very important, because cultivation of rubber is an investment, for planting of rubber is an investment for the next 25-year period. So the right identification and selection of planting material is crucial for the farmers' income stream for the next 25 years. So this is in that point of view, the accreditation of nurseries included in the strategy is very important. So means we have a very good fruitful discussion. We got a clear understanding of the Philippine rubber industry, along with the statistics, data, as well as picture, video. Means we got a feeling that we are in Philippines and seen everything, such a feeling. Thank you very much. Now, thank you very much, Dr. City, Mr. Jack, and also Mr. Egot. In fact, actually, I am now handing over the floor to Mr. Pera Prasad Rao, who is the CEO of TechnoBiz. Thank you very much.
Wow, it's a long discussion. It's a long discussion, very informative. I really enjoyed. First of all, I'm very thankful to all of you patiently, explaining issues in the Philippines. We like to drink some water first. You're fine. Your throat is okay. I would like to, before we end the session, I maybe like to touch few more issues. First of all, I really admire the energy levels of Dr. Siti, and unbelievable, incredible, or outstanding. I want to look at all the adjectives to refer her. You are a really super woman, helping in the Philippine rubber industry in various capacities, even after you retired. I have seen recently in your Facebook posting, you got some kind of a pin. What was about? You're asking what is going on? What is this about? Can you tell about it?
Yeah, it was actually a recognition of a performance. Department of Trade and Industry called that as a Mythical 5. So Mythical 5 for it's a top performer for regional directors. I guess that pin is either for 2018 or for 2019. You saw my posting, there was no communication. The pin was just sent to me. So I thought it was a pin that I left in the DTI when I retired, because I got this pin in 2017 when I was awarded as the Executive of the Year for 2016, and a similar pin was given. So when it was brought to me, I thought I left that. It was a pin of 2016 that I left in DTI when I retired. So I was when I posted in FB, the central office called me up to tell me that it was a new pin and I am an awardee for one of the top performers for director level. So that's the story of the team.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
So super, super. One thing I wanted to ask you is that, you are very energetic. You're retired, you're still active. How do you keeping yourself that active? And you're role model for many retired people to look up to you. Hey, you have so much knowledge, so much experience. You're trying to pass on that knowledge and pass on the experience, and still looking to develop the industry, Philippine rubber industry. Yeah. What
You
motivates you?
know, Peram, I'd like to credit these two gentlemen. Me in to continue be involving with the rubber industry, it was their doings. During my retirement, they surprised me with an announcement that I will be chairing the field rubber technical working group. So I thought I would be retiring. Oh well, I appreciate the move because it keeps me kicking and mentally very much alive because I need to, continue educate myself about the rubber industry, not just in the Philippines, but the global rubber industry, so that I would continue to be able to contribute something to the Philippine rubber industry in the Philippines. So, I thank Jackson, Vicky, Gabriel Agot because they were there during my retirement. It was also a big surprise for me because I didn't expect them to be there, and they were there. Yes. Uh, so it's really a nice move on their part because I have to. It keeps me busy mentally.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm also serving as a technical advisor to the MTIT minister in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. So meaning all the functions of DTI, I'm still able to impart that to the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao through the Ministry of Industry and Trade for that region. And yes, I attend webinars. I attend anything that is rubber. I read. If you notice, and not only that, because I'm also focused on one industry, the halal food industry. So, like if there's a need for information, some people would still come to me. So not to to disappoint them. So I also have to always keep myself updated. So, internet, even in the comfort of my bedroom, I have access to huge information in the internet. That's the best thing with the Internet of Things or the technology now. Okay, so that's what keeps me kicking. And on top of that, you regularly see my posting of plants. I'm spending so much on the collecting rare plants. Oh my God, I'm getting crazy. So maybe in a few years, I would be converting my home into a mini jungle. Everything climbing. You can just look at my window. Oh, it's a very dark already. Just look at my window with ferns climbing outside my window. I wouldn't be able to see people outside my window anymore. So those are the things physically that keeps me also alive. My
You are
plan.
you are a role model for young people, and we should be take motivation from you to be active. Yeah, Gabriel, take example. I think with Jack, I think you are too, right? She has set an example for us to keep up.
I'm also learning from them. I'm also learning from them, particularly for the upstream from Jack and then downstream from Gabriel Igot. So these guys are also my mentors on the rubber industry because I don't plant rubber. I don't process rubber. I don't have any single plant. I'm not trading rubber, but all I do is focus my mind on learning the industry, not just the local, but the global situation of the rubber industry.
Thank you, Dr. Siti. Pleasure, pleasure. Yeah. Jack, I have a couple of points to ask you. You have your own rubber plantation. I think I heard you are one of the richest guy in Philippines. I'm putting right, but do you have issues about the labor? Tappers, how do you handling?
Right now, we're doing a lot internally. We do training, continuous training. Even our present toppers, if their markings, we tend to grade them every quarter. And if there's a need for them to go retraining, we do. And channeling it back to other farmers. Uh, Next week, we're going to have a training transfer technology for tapping system. We adopt a 30-year tapping bark, 30-year virgin bark tapping system, which we got from one of the advanced companies in another country, and we're sharing it. It's quite challenging though, because most of the trees here are overexploited. And if you may, Param, no, going back to city, she's been a good friend of mine. And when she retired, no, so when she retired from the government service, and me and Mr. Egot were just very afraid that we cannot just let go of her because she's the real magnet that binds together all rubber stakeholders. No way. We have to do that. And if you look at it, another secret of city, aging gracefully. She used to take pictures. If you look at her Facebook, you go back when she was still active. Every day she posts pictures of sunsets. But look at her pictures today, it's all sunrise.
Or she instill a positive energy, yes? Instill positive.
It's in back of my house. Front thing is the sunrise.
Wow. Jack, do you have, do the people in Philippines, they do intercrops? Like, because to keep the, income generation continuous over the year, okay? What kind of practices they do?
That's a very good question, Param. It's actually one of the big question mark now as far as rubber production is concerned. Literally speaking, as we speak today, there are many researches. It all started like 30, 40 years ago, intercropping and intercropping and intercropping. And I saw for myself that intercropping may be a very serious issue as far as productivity is concerned and income-wise is concerned. And I do believe nowadays many are promoting intercropping because they find the income of rubber not enough to sustain their daily needs. And we, I myself doesn't go for that. I am not somebody who wants to promote intercropping because I could see monocropping on rubber. If you do it right, there's no need for you to intercrop to have a good harvest, a good way of income. I will go for multi-cropping. Mr. Igot has mentioned earlier, and we both of us have this opportunity to be with his late dad who manages Goodyear Siantar, Sumatra, Indonesia before. I went there several times and I saw for myself a lot of experiments regarding intercropping. Intercropping is indeed helpful to add income. Add income to a non-productive rubber farm. Again, add income to non-productive farm. Okay, you can just imagine if you go get around an average of 600 kg per hectare per year, that's merely what, $100 per month income. And if you make that 4 times, I think that would be more than enough for an income for a family. So I will still go. I will still go for a monocrop that is properly done and to be able to sustain while it is growing. Do a multi-cropping system instead of intercropping system.
And in many countries, like in major natural rubber produced countries, there is always issues about the government intervention about the prices, right? For whatever reasons. Okay, sometimes it can be political, sometimes can be, whenever there is elections coming up, and so you guys have any issues like that?
Not so, not so. Like right now, again, I'm very optimistic that something great will happen in Philippine agriculture again. We are one of the champions during the 70s as far as productivity is concerned, especially on the rice production, rubber as well. Uh, we still can go back to that time that we farmers are going. We're just like other countries, Param. We are losing farmers, daily. The average age of our farmers is getting very, very high since our productivity, not only in rubber but also in other commodities, going low and not sustainable for such a livelihood, a good livelihood.
Thanks, Jack. Gabriel, I have some points to ask you. You know, we talk about, we see the master plan, roadmap, for 2040, Dr. City is worrying that next 18 years time, how it's going to be. How,
I'm
how
worried
is
about
going
that, because I will be 82 years old by that time. So
we should call her now is a mom rubber in Philippine rubber, maybe it's a grandmom rubber industry at the time. Okay.
a great grandma.
um, one challenge I think in the rubber industry, what I see in other countries is that getting young people into the working, right? Working in the rubber industry is not really clean, and no, everybody wants to have a air-conditioned job, computer, sitting in front of computer. How the situation, young people enter into the rubber industry in Philippines?
Uh, Actually, there it's not as there's not that many young people in the rubber industry. The majority, and I think in our farm, majority of our tappers are already reaching retirement age, and some of them we even try to convince to forego or postpone retirement for a few years until we do get substitute tappers. But um, there's a lot of different industries that are competing for labor, uh, and a lot of them provide higher compensation. And it's it's just unfortunate that rubber prices are this low, and we cannot compete as much as we want to. It's very difficult for us to compete. So I think for us to attract more young people in the rubber industry, we really have to promote uh, productivity, to improve productivity, to really uh, bring in the technology to make rubber farming profitable. And you know, in rubber farming, you cannot there's nothing you can do with price. Price is it's since it's a global commodity, it's beyond your control. What you can control is your farm. So that's something that I think that Jack has been really trying to promote, that to improve the lives of the farmers, and in if by doing that we actually get more people in the industry. The only way to do that is to improve the technology, improve the productivity per hectare, so that everyone in the industry can earn a living off it. Unfortunately, now it's not the case. That's why we're seeing a lot of people moving out of the industry. But hopefully, in the near future, with roadmap hopefully signed in the next few weeks, this can be a reality for the industry.
Yeah, I think this is a problem, and I think most of the countries now they're getting the right people, manpower, to be. How is situation in manufacturing, the product manufacturers? What is their problems, and what kind of problems they're experiencing with the workforce? The similar
In
situation, operators
there,
or engineers.
yes,
Yeah,
there's actually a lot of people moving out, especially skilled workers. If we're talking about skilled laborers, they're actually moving out of the country, seeking employment outside. Um, and and those are the things that's a drain to the industry. So we've experienced in some of, let's say, the compounding sector, and in other highly technical manufacturing areas of rubber industry, that people have moved moved on from their jobs, and without really leaving a successor in place. So in our association, prior to pandemic, we did try to partner up with a university for them to create programs and diploma programs or certain courses that would fill the gaps that these uh, migrant workers leave behind. But hopefully, I I still have another year, and as a president of the industry. So hopefully, before I pass on the torch to another president, we can develop a program together with Mapua Institute of Technology to fill in the gaps, especially in material science. And yeah, that's a big uh, hole that we have to plug.
A lot of countries, of course, always look for foreign direct investment, FDI. Like you were saying, that some Chinese company they're going to put a plant on the tennis balls or something else. How about the domestic, business people? Are they expanding their own factories now? Is business is fruitful for them? How they are? You have many manufacturers in your like auto parts. How they are doing overall? Are they
Uh,
expanding their facilities and product lines?
a lot of them now are turning back on their lines. We just got out of a very long lockdown, and that really affected a lot of the companies, and there are even a few companies that closed down because of what happened. But we're seeing that the economy is bouncing back. We're seeing that a lot of the people are uh, adapting to the new normal. Um, we're also seeing that uh, there are certain areas in the economy that are um, moving faster than the others. So a lot of people, because of certain limitations during the pandemic, they actually went out to buy motorcycles, went out to buy bicycles. So in our association, the four motorcycle producers are actually looking at I think even expanding their operations. And also during the pandemic, there uh, certain deficiencies in the supply chain. The global supply chain was highlighted. One of
Yeah.
them was the surgical gloves and
Mm.
the mask. When the demand for these two items was peaking, there were basically no supply available. So in the latter part of 2021, uh, there was a committee that was created with the collaboration of UP Material Science and a few other uh, private sector companies to try and uh, set up local productions of surgical gloves and other medical devices, and a lot of them uh, have to do with natural rubber. But unfortunately, there's some funding issues. There's a lot of interest in between local companies to do and to produce gloves in locally, because the demand is there's a
Yeah,
100+ million people in the Philippines. There's a big demand, and
sure.
but hopefully soon, with the new administration coming in, and fresh funding for 2023, that we can put in some um, funds for the development of local glove manufacturing.
Well, guys, I'd like to talk more. I have, discuss more. I want to end this session here. I thank you very much, Dr. Siti, Mr. Jack, Mr. Gabriel. I'd like to thank a person behind all of you guys, Angie. Okay, Angie, please come forward. Can you open your camera? I'd like to convey my sincere thanks to you. You did a fantastic job on the, video, all the presentation. Angie. Let's ask. Okay, hello, Angie. Yeah. Thank you very much. You can remove your mask if it's comfortable there. Okay, so that everybody see you. The lady behind all the hard work. Yeah. Mr. Jom, please come forward. Yeah. Mr. Jom. Okay, Mr. Jom, are you there? Okay, so before we end this session, I'd like to ask you to give a final remarks to the audience. So with a little bit about Philippines and thanking them for being part of this session. Gabriel, can you go first?
I'd like to thank you, Param, and TechnoBiz for inviting us, and Mr. John Jacob for facilitating this talk, and of course to Dr. City and Mr. Jack for being part of the panelists. And Philippine rubber industry is just it's a sleeping giant. Hopefully, it's a sleeping giant. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of good pieces that we have here. We have a lot of areas for expansion. We have the tools. We just need a little bit more push. And I think with Dr. City still very much involved in the rubber industry, and I think she will be involved in the rubber industry until her last breath. We will be and we will achieve that. We will get there. And again, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and good night, everyone.
Thanks, Gabriel. Jack?
Mr. Param, I am here. I am listening you. I am here.
Can you open your webcam too? Please join us on the screen.
Is it okay? Because I am having my late lunch.
Oh, okay, go on. Fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, Jack, yes, please. Unmute yourself, please, Jack.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much again, TechnoBiz, Param, for having me. And I feel honored together to be with Mr. Gabriel Igot and, of course, our idol, Dr. Siti Amina Jain. She's really indeed a magnet for Philippine rubber industry. And I'm still looking forward. I'm very, very optimistic, just like what Gabriel has mentioned a while ago. We are sleeping giant. And being down there as far as productivity is concerned, being at the bottom, there's no way but up. Right. So if you look at our rubber roadmap, our target for 2040 is not really that hard to achieve for as long as we focus under the. Hopefully, our rubber board will be around during that time, and we'll be going up there with all the old sonalities changed into new productive areas with the leadership of the Philippine Rubber Research Institute that will be around, and I'm still praying and hoping for the best. So again, my pleasure to be around here together with Dr. Jacob. Daghang salamat sa tanan. Salamat tatang.
Salamat. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jack. Dr. Siti, yeah.
Okay, first I'd like really to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to you, Param, for giving us this opportunity to highlight the status, the profile, the situation of the Philippine natural rubber industry. And this also gives us a chance to, promote opportunities to potential investors. Please come to the Philippines, come to Mindanao. I agree with the two gentlemen that the Philippine natural rubber industry is a sleeping industry, a sleeping giant. So we encourage our audience to visit the Philippines. Contact us, contact Mr. Jackson Diti, contact Mr. Gabriel Igot of the Philippine Rubber Industry Associations if you are interested to look at the opportunities for investment in the Philippines. And Param, I also would like to thank John Jacob for the bridge that connected us to you.
True.
John, thank you so much. You have always been there for the Philippine rubber industry. You have always supported us since day one when we got, connected to ENRPC, to India Rubber Board. The first country I visited when I handled the rubber industry in 2014, we visited India. We went to Kerala, we met with the India Rubber Board, and we gained a lot from that visit. In fact, two of the technologies were introduced by the Department of Science and Technology in the Philippines. We adopted the rain guard, the root trainer. It has already been introduced to the farmers in the Philippines. So that's what we gained from our study mission to India. So again, thank you, John. Thank you, Peram. I just hope that this will not be the last time that you would invite us for us to be able to discuss what is happening with the Philippine natural rubber industry. Into our audience, thank you so much for staying with us. We hope you would be able to identify opportunities from our presentation, from our discussions, so that you would be able to, think about investing in the Philippines. Come to the Philippines. It's really more fun in the Philippines. So again, thank you, Peram. And thank you, Tom. And to the two gentlemen, thank you guys. You have always been the winds beneath my wings. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siti. Thank you, Dr. Siti. I'm listening to you.
Angie, thank you so much, Angie, for being there.
Thank you very much.
Hey guys, I'm really enjoyed, and there are a lot of takeaways for all the audience, and a lot of input from all of you. This is a really interesting program. I'm hoping that the audience find it more information, use this information, whatever gain, and connect you, and be part of that your roadmap 2040, so that I can bring, it's not going to be, this is just a beginning. I'm sure that I'll be touching Dr. Siti, Jack, and Gabriel now onwards. We'll be in touch. Sincere thanks to you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also special thanks once again to Angie. Your support is invaluable. I appreciate your support and putting all these three people together, and all the resources, infrastructure. Appreciate your contribution on this session. And you mentioned Jom Jacob is the brains behind this whole program. I'm only the kind of connector, I can say, but the main person, the NR dialogue is all, it's about Jom Jacob, his vision, and he wants to bring each country or each region their stories, and so that you can learn from each other. That's his objective. So thanks, Mr. Jom, and of course we keep on talking anyway. So thanks again, once again, all. Appreciate.
Thanks, Peram, and thanks, Italy, for the hard work.
Okay. Thank you all. Guys, that's the end of this session, NR Dialogue on the Philippines natural rubber. I'm hoping that you find it really useful. If you like to watch this again, it's available on YouTube in next 24 hours time. Okay, please watch it again. A lot of, you can take a lot of input out of this whole, 3-hour session. I was expecting 2 hours. It ended up almost 3 hours. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Appreciate and all the audience. And I'd like to introduce our next, the session is on the natural rubber industry in Thailand, which will be held on the 27th June. We have our guest is Mr. Supadej Pongsakul. He is the Deputy Secretary General of the Thai Rubber Association and also the current Executive Secretary of International Rubber Association. He'll be joining us in our next episode. I invite you all to be part of this one, and natural rubber industry in Thailand. Suppose you have missed in the past episodes. Okay, again, I want to give you a glimpse of what we did so far. Okay, in our first episode, we talked about Myanmar rubber industry. You can check our Myanmar rubber industry. It's available on YouTube. Next, we did on the Vietnam natural rubber industry. Then we did on the Latin America natural rubber industry. And we have also a special session on the sustainable natural rubber road ahead with Mr. Stefano Savi. Okay, so All these are available to view on YouTube at TechnoBiz channel. Please check it out. You will find the information useful to you. Okay. So with that note, thank you all. I'm hoping that you find this whole session useful. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks once again.